going to pause for a moment because people are still taking their seats. Okay, folks, get comfortable. Good evening and welcome to Marjorie Mill Batten Hall. This is the 6th session of Lexington's annual town meeting. This body, consisting of 189 elected town meeting members plus at-large members, constitutes the legislative branch of our town's government. This meeting debates and votes on all appropriations of money, on all bylaw changes, including zoning bylaw changes, and on resolutions indicating the will of the meeting. The meeting is managed by a moderator elected annually by a townwide vote. That's me. My name is Deborah Brown, but tonight you'll hear people refer to me as Madam Moderator. On behalf of myself and town meeting members, I want to extend a very warm welcome to our visitors in the balcony. You are taking part in a proud Lexington tradition of participatory democracy dating back to our first town meeting in 1713. Lexington's current representative form of town meeting has been in use since 1930. Every household in Lexington previously received by mail a warrant describing each of the 45 articles to be discussed at the annual town meeting. These articles are the agenda items, and only those items listed in the warrant can be brought before the meeting. So in essence, the warrant serves as the warning to everyone in town about what topics will be discussed at town meeting. Tonight's meeting is dedicated to only one of those agenda items, Article 34, Amend General Bylaws, Guns. Article 34 was included in the warrant at the request of resident and town meeting member Robert Rockford and 9 or more additional registered Lexington voters. As you can tell by the title of the article, the authors originally intended to propose a bylaw change, but the final motion before us tonight asks instead for a non-binding resolution. It is that resolution which will be the subject of debate tonight. But before we move to that debate, I want to share some helpful information about our rules and procedures so that everybody can participate most effectively. So first, we have to talk about sound. There are a lot of us here tonight. It's a big hall, so noise is an issue. So we're going to need everybody's cooperation to make sure that we can hear each and every speaker. So, at this time, please turn off or silence anything that rings, sings, or vibrates. And I will do the same. There we go. Please be extra quiet, exiting or entering the hall. And if you are taking a break out in the lobby, please speak very quietly out there. Sound really travels, so we can hear actually what goes on in the hall. These microphones are most effective if you speak directly into them. And I may interrupt a speaker from time to time to make this reminder because I really want everyone to be heard tonight. A word of caution, this meeting, like all of our meetings, is being broadcast live on cable TV and it's being streamed live on Lex Media. So, please consider all microphones to be live at all times, and remember, they can pick up comments that you might not intend for public broadcast. Okay, so everybody's forewarned. Let's talk about seating. As you've already discovered, the seating area here on the main floor is reserved for town meeting members, and we've reserved and for staff, and the balcony seating is reserved for all of our other residents and visitors. Here on the stage, the town clerk is seated to my left, town council and the deputy moderator to my right, and at the tables here you'll find the Board of Selectmen, the town manager, and additional town staff who are managing our electronic voting and our projection system. The fire chief has asked me to share the process if we have to make a quick getaway because of a fire alarm. So what Chief Wilson has asked me to share with you is that in the event of a fire alarm, you should exit in an orderly fashion towards your nearest exit, and that might not be the door that you entered through today. So take a moment now to identify the closest exit to where you're sitting, and just that's the safest way for you to get out. Addressing the meeting. In order to help with an orderly and courteous debate, no one may address the meeting without first being recognized by the moderator. Only town meeting members can make motions or pose questions or participate in the votes, but residents and guests may address the meeting from the balcony once I recognize you. We placed 3 microphones in the balconies tonight for that purpose, so there's 1 in each section. Once at the appropriate time in the debate, I will start to call on folks in the balcony who contacted me in advance requesting to speak, and those who signed up tonight with the staff who were up there earlier. So, once I recognize you, give your name, your address, and any relevant professional affiliation. Again, speak directly into the microphone. You'll have a strict 3-minute time limit, and that's the same strict time limit that's imposed on town meeting members who are speaking from their yes or no microphone. And you'll notice that when town meeting members are at the question microphone, they have a 2-minute time limit. Your remarks should be relevant to the actual motion under discussion. Your remarks should contain no personal attacks against individuals or groups. We like to say it's the motion, not the maker, that's the subject of debate. In order to keep things moving, we don't allow applause or booing or any other demonstrations of approval or disapproval. I want as many of you as possible to have a chance to speak, and so that just helps us to move more quickly, so I really appreciate your cooperation with that. And all of these rules that I described are the same ones that town meeting members have to follow. So we have a parliamentary item called calling the question that I want to describe for you so it doesn't surprise you. Town meeting members may, after a period of time, decide that they've heard enough debate and they're ready to move to a vote. And so in that case, a town meeting member will call the question. So if a member makes that motion, we'll immediately take a vote to see if the majority of members agree that they have heard enough debate and they're ready to vote on the main motion. Sometimes when this occurs, there are still town meeting members or visitors who want to speak but who haven't had a chance to speak. So please, please don't take it personally if this happens. This sometimes happens when debate has gone on at great length and speakers start to repeat the same arguments that have been already expressed. So keep it new, add something new to the debate and you'll keep everyone's attention. So, at this time, I want to direct my next remarks to town meeting. This is our opportunity to test our electronic voting devices and to take attendance and to confirm that we have a quorum, which is, it's very obvious we do. So once you see the voting screen, you can go ahead and press any button in order to register your attendance. But remember, when it comes time to vote on the motion tonight, you'll press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 to abstain. And for our visitors, what's happening now is that town meeting members are looking at a roster of all the members in the 9 precincts and at large. They're making sure that they see their attendance vote registered, and that's how we ensure that their device is working. Yes?
Point of order. I picked this up on the information table outside. I thought it was information from the proponent, but it is not signed and has no name on it. I was wondering if you could find out who put this out for us on the information table.
Who's the author of the pink information piece? Mr. Roper. Mr. Roper is the author. Thank you.
And the date is today.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible. I'll coach folks who are new to the meeting through this as we go, so you don't have to remember everything that I said. I'm here to help you. So at this time, because the articles are written in a certain order in the warrant, and I can't change that order without the permission of the meeting, I'm going to ask the selectmen for a motion to take Article 34 out of order now. Mr. Papp.
Madam Moderator, I so move.
Question comes on that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. The meeting is open on Article 34, Amendment General Bylaws, Guns. The motion is the one before you for a non-binding resolution dated March 21st, 2016, and on file with the town clerk. Mr. Rockford. Mr. Rockford.
I so move. Is this on now?
It's on, it's just, there's a pause.
Madam Moderator, Selectmen, fellow town meeting members, I urge you to vote for a very simple motion that asks the Selectmen to do two things. One, to remind the Greater General Court that its laws may insufficiently protect its citizens from assault weapons, and two, to spur a townwide conversation about assault weapons and gun violence. My informal email poll of town meeting members indicated that many of you wanted to begin a prolonged conversation about assault weapons. I would have preferred a different solution, but this resolution responds better to some of the legal and logistical issues that were raised. It is my hope that the Selectmen will appoint a committee of distinguished town meeting members and concerned citizens representing all points of view, and that such a committee will be asked to study assault weapons and gun violence, hold hearings, and report back to the 2017 town meeting. I also hope that such a committee or some other process will find a scientific way to elicit the views of all of our citizens, not just the views of a vociferous minority. That way, it will be clear exactly, after the process is concluded, what the citizens of the town prefer and what we should do to prevent mass killings. Now, the resolution before us also asks the Selectmen to encourage the Great General Court to strengthen state laws against assault weapons. Lincoln last month voted to do something similar, but put the burden on Congress. Newton and Longmeadow are considering outright bans on assault weapons, and there may be other towns and cities that are doing the same. As I tried to show in my long emails to town meeting members, the Commonwealth's legislation in this area is hard to enforce. Some states, including Connecticut and New York, ban assault weapons based on one characteristic only. Massachusetts law demands two characteristics, making assault weapons harder to prohibit and prosecutions for possession more difficult. State law also permits pre-1994 weapons, that is manufactured before 1994. The Minuteman recently demonstrated the different manner in which weapons were registered in our local towns. Massachusetts has strong laws, but not yet the best in the nation. In fact, in 2013, a special committee of the Massachusetts House of Representatives reported to Speaker DeLeo with a great number of recommendations to strengthen state laws, only some of which have so far been enacted. What is an assault weapon? Briefly, a semi-automatic rifle that can accept a detachable magazine and have at least one military feature: a pistol grip, a forward grip, a folding grip, a telescoping or detachable stock, grenade launcher, a rocket launcher, barrel shroud, or threaded barrel, and on and on and on. Mass shootings in Newtown, Colorado Springs, San Bernardino, Tucson, and many other places have amply demonstrated, I think, all too clearly the need to regulate military-style assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines. These weapons allow a gunman to fire a large number of rounds quickly without having to reload. Such weapons are not required for self-defense. Now let me show you some slides, and the material on the most of the slides is replicated in the fuchsia sheets that I put out tonight on the table and unfortunately forgot to sign or date. I apologize for that, but I expected to hand them out in a different manner, and they're completely illustrative of what we show. This chart shows the incidence of mass violence in 2016 only, and each dot represents at least one and sometimes 4 killings. Next chart. This is a chart of homicides per 1 million. You'll see that the United States towers over all other G20 countries, that is, European countries. You see that Switzerland is next. Nice, peaceful Switzerland has 7.7, the U.S. practically 30 deaths per million. Now I'm going to shift to the slides that are duplicated on your fuchsia sheets. We'll go through them very quickly. You'll see these horrific numbers. Number of Americans that have lost their lives from gun violence.
Mr. Roderick, it's hard for us to hear you when you turn away from the microphone.
Yes, sorry. So, good point. You'll see at the bottom of the first slide, in 2015, there were 330 mass shootings. That is 4 or more deaths from the same person. Let's go to the next slide. And this year already there have been 3,000 killings and 56 mass shootings. It says 56. That's a week old, but they're now 57, and involving 4 or more people. In each day, 88 Americans are killed by guns. 1 in every 3 persons, including presumably everyone here, knows someone who has been shot. Next slide. Let's see, where are 7? You can see the children, see that Massachusetts residents own a horrific number of guns, but many fewer than other states, I think. Middle of the slide. The U.S. ranks number 1 in the world in gun ownership by far, followed by the Yemen and a lot of other countries that we think of as dangerous and so on. And then there are an astounding number. Someone came up to me earlier and said this next figure was an underestimate, but I think it's a reasonably correct, verified figure of 89 guns per 100 Americans, based on 270 million guns in the U.S. In fact, many sites suggest that there are 310 million guns at the present time. If you look at the bottom of the slide, and let's go to the next slide as well, you'll see what assault weapons do and what the federal government has managed to do. In the 10 years the federal assault weapons ban was in practice, was in vogue, and assault weapons are disproportionately involved, as we see at the bottom there, in murders with multiple victims, multiple wounds per victim, and police officers as victims. And the assault weapons in crime declined by more than 2/3 when there was an effective U.S. ban on assault weapons. That was removed in the Bush years because it had a 10-year life when it was first enacted. Let's look at the last bullet point. When Connecticut toughened its laws, assault killings went down. Missouri, in the same year, last year, axed its similar laws and killings went up. And let me go on and let me say something about the Second Amendment. In 2008, the Supreme Court of the United States in District of Columbia versus Heller established a constitutional right to keep guns at home for self-defense. Even more recently, the Supreme Court told the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts to consider some stun guns weapons of self-defense. Yet, in the Heller decision, even the late Justice Scalia said that the right to guns for self-defense was not unlimited. Moreover, it is clear in the Supreme Court's decision not to overturn on December 8th the Highland Park Ordinance against assault weapons that neither the Supreme Court nor Scalia at the time believed that assault weapons were required for self-defense. The Globe editorialized on Sunday that having a weapon handy actually raises the risk of violence. The Globe was drawing on a study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine that found that a gun in the home makes it much more likely for someone to commit suicide or to shoot someone else. Attorney General Maura Healey, and some of you heard her yesterday, calls gun violence a public health crisis and a moral issue. Guns have a significant impact on the health and well-being of families and the community at large, she said. The fact of the matter is that having a gun in your home does not make it a safer place to be, and actually makes it more dangerous. It's not, she went on to say, that people are entitled to exercise their Second Amendment rights and to keep a gun at their house, but the risk of suicide is 5 times as high. Death of a household member is 3 times more likely. With a gun in the home, a woman's risk of intimate partner homicide, says Attorney General Healey, is 7 times as great. Given everything we know, given everything that the Attorney General knows, given everything that we've heard, I think it is time that Lexington begins to talk and just maybe to act about curbing assault weapons and gun violence. I ask for your strong support for this very modest and forward-looking, non-binding resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Pato.
Madam Moderator, the Board of Selectmen have not taken a formal position on this article, with 2 members in favor, 2 members opposed, and 1 member waiting to listen to the floor debate on this article. As a resolution, this proposal asks that the Board of Selectmen inform the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that residents of the town of Lexington are concerned that state laws regarding assault weapons may not be sufficient. This proposal asks the Board of Selectmen to initiate a town-wide discussion on further action that may be taken to express the sentiments of concern by residents to the General Court.
Thank you. Are there any other boards or committees who wish to report on this? Okay, seeing none, now going to open it up for debate. So here's how this will work. Town meeting members who wish to speak for or against can line up at the yes and no microphones. Town meeting members with questions can line up at the question microphone. And I have a long list of members of the public sitting in the balcony who wish to speak. So what I'll do is I'll cue you up. I'll tell you when I get to the balcony who's up next. And wherever you're sitting, whatever is the closest microphone, that's where you should go stand and be prepared. So with that in mind, I'm going to call on the town meeting members at the yes and no microphone, and then if Alan Safarian in the public gallery could get to a microphone, he'll be next after that. Mr. Fenn at the yes microphone.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Dan Fenn, Precinct 3. Some say that this town meeting should restrict itself to consideration of budgets, zoning bylaws, and other allocations of funds and matters which affect our locality only. I would remind my friends and neighbors assembled here that concern with the larger issues of the society as it affects our citizens is part of our DNA. In the 1700s, our predecessors concerned themselves with such matters as the rights of British citizens and subsequently national independence. And the fact is that we have concerned ourselves with matters outside our own borders up to this day. Secondly, there are those who say that Massachusetts gun laws are already among the strongest in the nation, that they were reviewed only 2 years ago, that the problem really lies in enforcement. I will submit to you that concern with enforcement and with continuing review are not mutually exclusive. We can do both. That all statutes and regulations should be subject to review in these fast-changing times. I think I heard recently that the mayor of Boston is assembling the mayors around the state to conduct such review of gun safety law. Finally, some say that we have no gun problem in Lexington. Consequently, there's no need for any conversation. My friends, there are a number of cities and towns that had no gun problem until tragically they did. I hope you will join me in supporting this resolution.
Thank you. Mr. Mans, with the no microphone.
Madam Moderator, Hank Mans, Precinct 9. With my presence at the no microphone, some will assume I am a gun owner, but no, I do not own a gun. Or perhaps I am at least some sort of gun supporter, perhaps an enthusiast. That too would be incorrect. 23 months in Vietnam did a lot to convince me that guns are almost never the answer to any question. Or maybe as one somewhat unkind post to the list suggested, no voters are simply afraid to say yes. Nonsense. I have sat through many contentious hearings and presentations while a part of town government. There has been a lot of heat, many meetings, but tonight was the first when I had to walk through a metal detector to attend a public meeting. As I look around the hall, I recognize many who are here. They are friends and neighbors, parents whose kids I've had in hockey or baseball or 100 other activities. I am sure some of them carry guns on a regular basis. Yet I am able to shop, go to restaurants, and normally come to meetings in this hall without having to go through a metal detector. I may not agree with those who carry guns, yet metal detectors have never been needed before. So what's the difference? In Lexington, the usual process is to talk first, prepare the ground, announce your intentions, talk to people. Then when you are prepared, bring forth your plan. In this case, in my opinion, it was backward. First, a tough article came forward, which was unworkable. An article which took a law from a town that is not Lexington, located near a large city which is not Boston. An article which appeared to take little note of existing Massachusetts law. But still, the conversation came last, and there are elements in the resolution which remain, in my opinion again, mildly insulting. So do I believe there are too many guns out there? Yes. Do I hope the proposed conversation takes place no matter what the vote on this article? Of course. I will be at any such meetings. But how will I vote on this article? I will vote no, and I will hope that something a lot better will be presented in future and in a way that does not put the solution ahead of a reasonable public process.
Thank you. And at the public microphone, Mr. Safarian.
Good evening. My name is Alan Safarian. I live on Augustus Road in Lexington. I've been a resident since 2002 and discovered tonight that I'm also a member of the vociferous minority. Now that Article 34 is a resolution instead of a bylaw, why oppose it? Simple. It was flawed as a bylaw and now it's flawed as a resolution. Yesterday we heard from the chair of the Gun Violence Prevention Group at Fallen Church. I was shocked to learn from her that the proponents seemed unaware of existing Massachusetts firearms law. This is borne out by the resolution, whose scope is a single section of state law for which it resolves to develop proposals to strengthen. But it isn't the correct section.
Mr. Safarian, if you could pause for a moment. Please, town meeting members, no chatting in the line here. Mr. Safarian, straight ahead. That particular microphone requires you to be really close.
Thank you. So the section cited in the resolution is not the correct section. The section cited only defines the effective date and the penalty. The more appropriate section with the definitions is not cited, nor is the section passed in 2014 when gun laws were revised here in Massachusetts. This is but one of the problems with Article 34. You see on your screen the existing resolution with emphasis added by me. Let's focus on the key phrases. A town-wide discussion that would lead to proposals for a strengthening of those laws. It doesn't say may lead to, it says would lead to. Clearly, the outcome is predetermined. I hope you agree this is unacceptable. The whole point of a community discussion about a controversial issue is for the opposing sides to jointly develop a recommendation. Here, that is precluded from the start. Massachusetts firearms are amongst the strongest in the nation. Many of us consider them adequate and not in need of strengthening. This would appear to disqualify us from these discussions. Surely that is not town meeting's intention. The bottom line is that these errors in composition yield a resolution that does not perform as intended and serves no one's purpose. Honorable town meeting members, this issue has unnecessarily divided and embittered our community. Let's wipe the slate clean and start over. You can do that by rejecting Article 34 tonight. Then we can engage in a genuine, sincere discussion with no presuppositions. And perhaps next year, we'll be standing here offering a jointly developed resolution. And we will have done it the right way, in the correct sequence. First, respectful discussion, and then resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to call on Ms. Blyer at the question microphone, and Mr. Pato at the yes microphone, and then if Jim Wood could get to a public microphone, he'll be next in line. Ms. Blyer.
Madam Moderator, through you, I would like to ask a question of Mr. Rockford. If I have to start out by saying I'm not a gun proponent, don't own a gun, won't own a gun. That said, I'm reading in this information that it says assault rifles fire 600 to 900 bullets a minute. And that's a horrible figure, and anyone would want to get guns that fire 600 to 900 bullets a minute off the streets.
It's hard for us to hear, so please keep it down. Thank you.
But my understanding of what a semi-automatic rifle is that you have to pull the trigger once for one bullet. That an automatic rifle continues to shoot bullets when you hold the trigger in. So if you have to pull the trigger one time for one bullet, and under Massachusetts law, you can't have more than 10 bullets in a magazine, could you please explain how one of these rifles would fire 600 to 900 bullets per minute? Mr. Rocker.
Madam Moderator, I took my information from innumerable sites on the web, but I think we have close at hand an expert who can enlighten me and maybe us. I wonder if we could call Mr. Barry. Madam Moderator, if you recognize. The question was, can an assault weapon shoot 6 to 900 bullets?
Mr. Barry, would you like to answer?
I'm not sure if I could answer.
Okay, so go to the microphone so at least I can hear what you're saying. I apologize.
I think that question would depend on a lot of factors on what the specific type of weapon is.
Madam Moderator, could we address the question to the type of semi-automatic rifle that Mr. Rockford is seeking to discuss in this question?
Thank you.
Again, I'm not an expert in any sort of specific firearms. I'm not an armorer. I'm an expert for the licensing authority for the town. So I get the licensing of the firearms and the people, not the weapon themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Do you have a further answer?
Yes, I will send Ms. Byer, if she wishes, exact reference. I can't do it obviously now until I get to a computer. I'll be very happy to do that and show her all the sources. The data on these slides came from probably 7 or 8 reputable gun sites on the web, and I can direct you to all of them or some of them.
Madam Byer, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, am I understanding correctly that a semi-automatic rifle requires 1 pull of the trigger for 1 bullet?
Mr. Robert?
I'm sure there are lots of gun owners here who can report more directly than someone who has never fired a semi-automatic rifle. I'm not sure I should be called to explain how semi-automatic rifles work.
Okay, excuse me, everybody, quiet down. Ms. Byer, we're going to move on, I think. Thank you. Mr. Pato.
Madam Moderator, Joe Pavel, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, but I'm here now speaking only for myself as an at-large member of town meeting. I rise in support of this resolution. The resolution before us tonight is inconvenient. It calls on the Selectmen to initiate a town-wide discussion on a topic where passions run deep. It comes at a time when the community is wrestling with a wide range of challenging local issues and can be thought of as a distraction from this work. Tonight's attendance, however, and the many email messages to town meeting members, as well as the letters, emails, and personal calls I have received as a selectman, attest to the depth of concern on all sides of the gun control debate. It is precisely this passion and engagement that speaks to the need for a community discussion on the topic. I rise to say that the establishment of laws addressing these issues rightfully lie with the legislature, but that the voices that call for those laws belong to us, the citizens of the Commonwealth. Town meeting is a reflection of our long tradition of participatory democracy. It is entirely appropriate for it to ask the selectmen, the year-round stewards of our community interest, to bring together a structure for community dialogue on this topic. Tonight, I don't presume to argue the merits of any proposal for addressing individual fears of gun violence or fears over the perceived restriction of rights. I rise simply to argue that these fears are the reason for an engaged, robust, and civil community discussion, and that the proposal we consider emerged through an engaged community process. Lexington has a long tradition for making the hard choices to take a stand on issues of broad importance. Let us make that hard choice tonight and commit to having grassroots discussions on gun violence and conveying the results of those discussions to our representatives in the legislature so that they can be empowered to take action for us and all Massachusetts residents. Please join me in voting yes tonight.
Thank you, and I'll call on Jim Wood at the public microphone. Mr. Wood.
Madam Moderator, Jim Wood, 51 Gleason Road, Precinct 7, 47-year Lexington resident, and a 25-year town meeting member. I don't believe that we need to initiate an additional town-wide discussion. I am concerned about the form that these fully considered proposals may take. I believe our own Minuteman paper has done a terrific job since January covering various points of view. The Minuteman drew conclusions from all the conversations, and that they were free, enforce the existing laws, a comprehensive approach to mental health, and to identify those with suicidal tendencies so they can be helped early. The proponents of this and their signatories could have worked with our state representatives if they perceived a defined, identifiable deficiency that hasn't been done. Unfortunately, when people talk about gun control, it devolves to gun bans quickly. And as most of you remember, the original bylaw that the proponent put forth had banned now 52 semi-automatic rifles, 1 bolt-action rifle, 10 pistols, and 5 shotguns. Now this wasn't a control question, it was a straight ban. If you pick up this mantle of let's get involved in this, it goes on forever. Before the House of Massachusetts, there are 22 bills regarding firearms. Before the Senate, there are 17. So we have 39 bills before our legislature. Now, this involves cost. You only have to look around. If you attended the March 8th session, there was quite a large safety presence. We have even, it looks like triple that tonight. So there's a major cost to that. I don't think the benefit from additional discussion will have any
15 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am next going to call Ms. Stroud at the question microphone, Mr. Smith at the yes microphone, and then Cornelia Johnson at the public microphone. But before I do that, I would just like to know the name of the gentleman who's standing directly in front of me.
Sergeant Andrew Cochran.
Okay, Sergeant where?
Sergeant Andrew Cochran.
I understand, but Sergeant in what capacity?
United States Army.
Okay, and are you standing because you wanted to offer some information about assault rifles in response to the previous question, or do you want to speak about this resolution?
Both, ma'am.
Okay. I have a list that I'm referring to, but I may call on you if you, before I go through the list, if you want to directly address the question that the town meeting member asked. Are you prepared to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'll get to you then. Okay, so next is Stroud.
Deborah Stroud, Precinct 6, Madam Moderator, to you 3-ish questions. To the League of Women Voters, whether this motion passes or not, will the League still host a Lexington community conversation not limited by the language of this resolution, as they offered to on March 16th before Mr. Rothberg's resolution was circulated?
There's someone here from the League who can address that question. Thank you, Ms. Mans. Ms. Mans.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm the current convener of the Lexington League of Women Voters, and yes, our intention is to put together a wider discussion. This is such a complicated issue, and I think it's apparent that there are many aspects that need to be addressed beyond a single resolution or a single weapon, and that it's very important to include not just the members of town meeting, but the residents of the town in general, to bring in some current hard data on what is happening with our legislation in our own state and what the statistics are, and to try and address what a community such as ours might usefully do to address the dangers of guns, so whether it be criminal or not. So we intend to go forward, and we hope that we will have the cooperation of the town, and we hope that we can further this discussion as I think Mr. Roderick has indicated.
Thank you, Ms. Mans. Ms. Stroud, do you have a follow-up?
To Mr. Rothberg, would such a conversation, including but not limited to the items you delineated, be acceptable as a partial outcome, whether or not the motion passes?
Mr. Rothberg.
Madam Moderator, yes, of course.
Ms. Stroud.
My understanding is there's not someone the moderator would recognize to answer a similar question for Lexington opponents, but one told me that at least some would like to participate in a town-wide discussion, just not under the wording of the resolution. I hope by emphasizing the breadth of the alternative, those who do wish to participate in town-wide conversation will know that they have a welcoming space waiting regardless of the vote tonight. Yes, no, and abstain are blunt tools to communicate the outcome of community discussions. We'll hear many reasons behind each of those. I caution anyone from interpreting the outcome in a singular way, particularly as a response to outside pressures, pro or con. I was at first glad the idea of a bylaw that might make Lexington even safer and be a model, but then disappointed by the specific proposal. I feel even this resolution as worded doesn't capture the multiple factors and solutions needed for preventive measures, and those are concerns both proponents and opponents I spoke with. The League's proposal dovetails with ongoing town discussions about health, resilience, risky behaviors, and the kind of community we want to sustain and how, topics that would enhance and engage discussion of gun safety, gun violence, control of rights. Ideas for reducing gun misuse range from limiting gun types or availability to gun education and health services, tracking individual
15
weapons.
seconds.
Discussing those elements in the UMDA would be great. I'm glad we got talking. I will vote no, and I'm hopeful that regardless of whether the resolution passes or fails, there'll be productive follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Madam Moderator, Frank Smith, Precinct 3. I rise to speak in favor of Article 34. First, I hope that those of you on the floor who oppose the originally recommended bylaw will not be absolutist about not passing anything here, so that we can come together on this resolution which calls for recognizing the serious problem of gun violence and for having a town-wide discussion. This resolution is not about seizing property, it's not about the right to bear arms, it's about our seeming inability in this politically divisive climate to even talk about gun violence, let alone achieve any meaningful change. I understand that many of you here, even some who are gun control advocates, were very unhappy with the original bylaw proposed under this article and want to just start over. But here we are. We can't pretend that this debate has not started, and we can't pretend that we are not now in the spotlight. We have before us a resolution that basically says less gun violence and more conversation. It may say that inelegantly, but that's the essence of it. Can we not come together as a community to say out loud less gun violence and more conversation, without everyone retreating to hardened positions? The fact that Massachusetts has tough assault weapons laws, or that most gun violence isn't committed by legally licensed gun owners, is really beside the point. The point is that we need to do more. Whether it's enforcement of existing laws, or more background checks, or taking guns away from the mentally ill, we need to do more. I fear that if we cannot pass this minimal resolution, the town of Lexington will be seen by the many eyes that are now watching us as the town that couldn't even come together to take a stand for less gun violence and more conversation. That's not who we are as a town. That's not how we want to be portrayed. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Cornelia Johnson at the public microphone.
Very intimidating to be up here to look at my friends and neighbors.
Cornelia, if you could give your address first, please.
Cornelia Johnson, 52 Potter Pond, Lexington, Mass. I started by saying it's rather intimidating to be up looking at my friends and neighbors and wanting to understand why they would object to this particular resolution. I think Mr. Smith says it quite adequately when he says, all it's asking us to do is to come together and to talk about our different perspectives and find a way to resolve those. There are a number of different opinions in this room, and I look to this august body to be the agents to resolve those differences and to move forward. I spoke about this 2 weeks ago, it seems like forever, at the Selectmen's meeting. And at that meeting, I talked about the things that we all have in common. And one of them is the sense of safety and security that we want for our children. The other is respect for what the people did on that green ever so many years ago to ensure our security and our safety. What we have now is a resolution that simply asks us to talk to each other, to talk across the divide of the Second Amendment, which we interpret differently, and talk about what role we think assault weapons have in civil society. Because we all agree that they are important in terms of security for our security forces and for our military. I, like many of these people in the room that I have known for 35 and
some cases 40 or 45 years. I've known their children, and I now know their grandchildren. And I know what their faces look like after Sandy Hook. And I, along with many of the women and the men and the sons and daughters, wept for those children. And we can't talk about guns? What does that say to our children and the future generations, particularly at this Lexington town meeting? I'm also sorry to say to you that as I left the house tonight, I heard on the news that a teacher had walked into a school at Sandy Hook with a handgun. He's now on administrative leave. I don't want to ever hear that about one of our schools. And I don't want any child to have to hear about it in their school.
Thank you. I'm going to call on Mr. Chartis at the question microphone, and then Ms. Goldberg at the yes microphone, Ms. Gill at the no microphone, and then Sergeant Andrew Kaufman, if he could address us after that. Mr. Chartis.
Madam Moderator, Susanna Joseph, Precinct 2. I have one main question but some introductory question. My first question is, do we have more absentee upon meeting members tonight?
No, we actually have a full complement tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Chartis.
Now, I'm requesting that on Article 34, we should have a secret ballot.
We don't do secret ballots. You have been elected by citizens to represent them, and so your votes are now a public record.
Can I answer that? Yes, but there are many, anybody in Congress who tries to, confront NRA, he knows next time it's not going to be elected.
Mr. Chartis, we don't need to discuss this because our bylaw does not allow us to take a secret ballot.
Okay, then.
Thank you. Ms. Goldberg and then Ms. Gill.
Madam Moderator, Rita Goldberg, Precinct 2. I will vote yes on Article 34. I will vote yes on Article 34, and I applaud Bob Rockford's courageous impulse to do something about gun violence. Courage isn't easy when it comes to guns, because right or wrong, guns are scary, especially in emotional situations. But there are many here who already work on gun violence and who have a somewhat different approach, as I'll suggest. We as a community must do something effective to stem gun violence. The community conversation part of this article, which many people have already mentioned, must be taken seriously to unite gun owners and non-gun owners alike on this question. I plead with gun owners now to heed this request in the interest of our unity as a town, and to recognize that Lexington is not isolated from the gun violence that plagues our country. Even in town, many of us non-gun owners, fearing accidents in the home, for instance, have a lot of questions to ask of gun owners that I hope we can discuss in a civil way. For example, there was the time when one of our sons was in middle school visiting a friend who bragged about his father's gun and showed it. That was a hard moment for us. So some of us may have questions, even for legitimate gun owners, but I hope all the gun owners are listening. There are other, even more central topics for this conversation that I hope can bring us together. Law-abiding gun owners are not generally the source of the gun violence that kills so many of us. The big question that can unite us all is, where does the gun come from? And that is the illegal gun. To answer that question, we must look at illegal dealers, background checks, gun shows, shady private purchases. We must close the iron pipeline, the flow of illegal guns into our state from outside. We need to be able to give the police and ATF better tools to fight gun crime. And we must help women, especially women, to resist becoming small purchasers and enablers of men who use guns illegally. This is the massively largest part of gun violence in our country, and we are connected to it, even though we are here in Suburbia. Article 34 could be the beginning of a new era of leadership for Lexington, this time fighting gun violence, rather than the British. I think the British have been, so I don't fight them anymore. I hope that owners and non-owners alike can help work against gun deaths by participating in good faith in our coming community conversation. Again, I support Article 34, and I urge others to do the same, because it's a beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gill.
Madam Moderator, Kathy Gill, Precinct 7. I'm standing up the no mic tonight, not because I don't believe in gun control, or that I don't believe in debate. I do believe we need gun control laws, and I do believe that debate is healthy for our town and community. I'm standing here tonight because I found Kenneth Jeunesse letter very compelling, and I hope that my town meeting fellows have taken the time to read it, because it's very reasoned and it contains a number of key points. What I learned from Kenny, who's a fire chief in the city of Cambridge, is that Massachusetts has extensive laws on gun control. We're a state with comprehensive gun control laws that protects its residents. So that should not be our primary concern. What also struck a chord with me in reading Kenny's letter was that there's other issues that face our community that impact gun violence today. And I would love to hear from Chief Paul, what are those issues that are most immediate to our community? Is it opiates? Is it domestic violence? Is it bullying in our schools? Or is gun violence the issue that we should be focused on? And I'm not saying it's not worthy of attention, of course it is. And I'm not arguing with the statistics and the facts. The proponent of the article put forth. They're horrible statistics and they need to be addressed. But we can do that through our legislature, and we can also have the healthy debate that we need to have in our community without this resolution. I can support this resolution if what it was encouraging was a healthy debate, but it's encouraging us to strengthen the laws with a presupposition that we need to do so. What I'd like to see our community do is come together with the League of Women Voters and other channels to talk about the issues that are facing our town, but not limit it to gun control and gun violence. Because I know there are many people in this room that may have been impacted by gun violence, and maybe it's 1 out of 3 of us, but there are so many more people in this room that have been impacted by opiates and violence and domestic abuse, that those are equally worthy of our attention. But I don't think we need a resolution to talk about those issues or the one before us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then I'll call on Andrew Kaufman up in the public microphone. And after that, Michael Barg in the public gallery should get to a microphone. So Andrew Kaufman, if you could give your address and then you can speak.
My name is Sergeant Andrew Cochran. I live on 26 East Scott Circle up in Hanscom. So to first address the question of that, no, a semi-automatic weapon cannot fire multiple rounds when you pull the trigger once. That is why it is a semi-automatic weapon, not a fully automatic weapon. There's a difference. They're named differently for a reason. I would like to think that I would be the subject matter expert when it comes to firearms, having spent the last 9 years of my life as a United States infantryman and the senior sniper for the 1st Infantry Division for the last 6 years. I would also like to address April 19, 1775, almost 241 years ago today. Men laid down their lives not 300 yards from here to stand up to the tyranny of other men infringing on their liberties. That is what's in question for most men up here where I'm at right now. We don't have a gun problem in this country. We have a heart problem. Violence is stemmed from the heart. A gun is nothing more than a tool, the same as the pen that is being used on the papers right now, or the instruments to cast these ballots. It does not jump out of your hands and kill people. It is the person pulling the trigger. What we need to address is the mental health, stability, and education in this country. Taking away the liberties and freedom of other men because of an irrational fear is unacceptable.
Thank you. And Michael Barg, also in the public microphone.
Madam Moderator, Honorable Selectmen, town meeting members. The chains of bondage are for one link at a time.
Mr. Barg, I apologize for interrupting. Could you give us your address first?
I'm sorry. Mike Barg, Dexter Road, Lexington.
Thank you.
Chains of bondage are forged one link at a time. When the first speech is censored, when the first thought is forbidden, when any person's freedom is trodden upon, it chains us all irrevocably. Those who clothe themselves in alleged good deeds